Hello, I'm Sayje.
And I'm DeShawn. And welcome to our very first episode of Unbinding.the.binary.
A visual podcast where we get transparent about art, love, and gender.
And so much more. We figured we'd kick off our very first episode talking about our respective journeys and like the things that we've been through while we're doing this podcast and kind of just take it from there.
Exactly. So without further ado, let's get started.
All right. Hey girl.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm excited to be here in the Oracle Shop sitting with you.
Yes, and thanks to you and thanks to the Oracle Shop because it was your suggestion to film here and the owner was so gracious and is now sponsoring us to film. So this is fantastic. So thank you for the suggestion.
I mean, the moment I stepped in here, I just felt the vibes. I mean, so many lovely and beautiful crystals here, some books, some candles, some oracle cards, and it smells good and it feels good, which is what's most important.
Yeah. It's a vibe. I love the store. It's great. It's great. But yeah, so like I also too want to thank you for joining me on the podcast. I know we both have been wanting to do podcasts for a while. And I was on the train. This is how it happened. So
let's get into it. Let's tell the people.
So I was on the train because my commute from home to work is like pretty long.
Okay.
And so I was on the train and I'm like always listening to podcasts and I listen to a lot of drag queens and like, I listen to some other podcasts and they're always funny and like informative, but I couldn't find any podcasts that were for people in their 30s, like POC, like they just kind of like were on where I was in life that felt relatable. And so and I've been thinking about doing a podcast for about like 2 years now. And I was on the train and I was just like, you know what, I need to stop playing and I need to do this. And I was like, but I don't want to just like talk to myself, I want to have a conversation. And I'm like, who could I talk to? And I kid you not, your face popped in my head and no, seriously, it was like Sayje. And I was just like, okay. And I was like, she's not gonna want to do that. And it was like Sayje and said it again. And I was like, no. And then finally, it was like the voice in my head was just getting louder. And I swear to you, it felt like, bitch, I said Sayje. And I just said, you know what?
You better listen to them when they talking to you, okay? Because they will start screaming.
Yes, literally.
The guys, the angels, they play no games.
And so what happened was I just decided, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna just go ahead and reach out to her. And you were so gracious and was like, yes, let's do this. And here we are. So thank you.
Here we are. Yeah. And I'm just happy to be here. I've had like a few people that have reached out to me with the idea of just saying that, they would love to have a podcast where they speak about gender identity more so specifically, just so that they have an outlet to share. And I was like, yeah, cool, okay, let's do it. But it never really got around. We never got around to it. But when you approached me, I think that same consciousness that came through to you, that download, it hit me too. And I was like, yes, I'm on the platform with you. Let's get on this train.
Yeah.
So
and here we are. Like, it's so funny too because it came together so fast. Like, it literally was like, that's how the universe works though. You know what I mean? Like, once you make the decision, it's like, okay, got it. And then the ball just like starts to rolling. And like, I kid you not, it was like, I talked to my partners and I was like, yeah, we're gonna do this podcast. And they both were like, okay. And Ron was just like, yeah, like totally, I would love to like help. And then you were like, we should do it at the store. And I'm like, I don't think she's gonna do it. And everything just kind of came together. So yeah, like I'm so excited about this and I can't wait to continue to talk about just all the things, you know what I mean? And just be transparent, like healing, a space for healing for sure.
A space for healing, like, a sacred one.
Yes. Yeah, the community definitely needs like healing. Like, I think there's so much trauma in the LGBT, QAI plus community.
The whole alphabet.
The whole alphabet. All of us. There's so much trauma there that just is getting swept under the rug, and I really think that it'd be good to have like open, honest conversations. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so, yeah.
And invite people on, who are willing to come through with that same amount of transparency and leaving the shade at the door.
Leaving the shade at the door
because there's enough of that out there,
That's
right. And there's nothing wrong with, a little fun, every now and then. But yeah, I definitely want this to be a place where we can hold space for those who are either seeking answers or feel that they have something that they want to share and offer to people in the community. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
Because, I mean, like you said, we're in our 30s and soon to be, people are going to be looking up to us and, looking for who do I turn to for answers, who are my elders, I don't really need to use that word. She's still young and glowing, but
I mean,
and I will be then too. But I'm here for you. We're here for you.
Right. I mean, we are essentially the elders in our own way.
Yeah, but setting the foundation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah. Let's just get into it. The Oracle Shop is a metaphysical boutique located in the heart of Bushwick, Brooklyn. This shop features beautiful and energizing products for the home, body, and soul, including crystals and minerals, as well as ceremonial and spiritual cleansing supplies, jewelry, oracle cards, tarot cards, books, candles, and more. Come visit us at the Oracle Shop, located at 164 Wilson, Brooklyn, New York, 11237. All right, so okay, so I would love to know more about your journey in transitioning. I met you pre-transition.
Yes.
We went to Berkeley together. We both studied there as vocal music majors. You're a vocal music major, right? Or you came in as vocal principal?
Yeah, I'm vocal principal, and I eventually chose pro music. So my concentration was pretty much in the music business.
Word.
Performance and songwriting.
Oh, cute. I didn't know that. That's yes. I dig it. I was there for a year budget.
But it feels like you were there the whole time. It's so every time we talk about it, I'm like, wait, you left? 2008? So that was...
I was only at Berkeley for 2 semesters. Wow. I literally came in and was out. I was hoping to stay, but it didn't work in my budget. It just didn't work in my favor. And then it was like, all right, I'm gonna have to figure out life, and I just decided to take another journey. And y'all, has been a journey. But
oh, indeed, it has been a journey.
but I would just love to find out what brought you to Sayje, because in fact, so the last time I actually saw you in person, I saw you in February of 2020. So in fact, early February 2020. So the pandemic. No, actually, it was the end of January because I was babysitting Sunny D, the dog.
Okay.
And they were in India for 6 weeks because they had left. So this was it might have been the very beginning of February, end of January, whatever.
But definitely in that time frame.
I wasn't even hearing anything about coronavirus or COVID. There was nothing.
I had been because I think that was when they were concerned about California and that plane that came into LA or somewhere. Okay. And I actually was getting ready to get on a plane in February because I went down to Miami to write some music with a friend.
Oh, word.
So I was kind of like, is it... Even then, and this was before it spread, it was like, is it safe to fly? And child, I went to Rite Aid to go look for masks and things like that. I was...
Wow.
But when I got to the airport, no one was wearing a mask. Okay. And I felt completely awkward. So I took it off and just wrapped up in a scarf on the plane. I was like...
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, I didn't hear anything about COVID until a week before New York shut down. When I was like, wait a minute, what's happening?
So that was the last most recent time that you saw me was February of 2020, and
then, I saw, and then I saw you again most recently at our mutual friend's birthday party.
True
and
story.
So there was a difference in who you were
presenting.
Kind of. Yeah. So kind of. Yeah. So I would love to know more about your journey.
So I mean, when you knew me at Berkeley, I was this music geek fanatic artist who had no problem, child, expressing herself. I
remember that. Yeah.
At that point in time, I went by a different name, of course, and I mean, everybody knew I was gay. Everyone knew I was gay. It wasn't a secret, and it's so funny because in our school, like, I went from an arts high school to a music university.
Okay.
So I assumed that when I got there that it was going to be like, yes, like the girls, we're going to be out loud and proud and open and present. And I got there and said, oh my gosh.
Right.
There's very little openly queer people here. And I mean, it didn't stop me from being myself, essentially, from expressing myself. I was always, and to this day, like changing my hair and switching up my style and expressing my femininity. And also within that, suppressing my womanhood. Yeah.
That's such a strong statement. You were comfortable expressing your femininity, but you were suppressing your womanhood.
Yeah.
That's like, go ahead.
Yeah, because I mean, I was out. There was never any question about, who I was as far as who I could have possibly been dating or sleeping with or what have you. And I had been out since high school, actually, since like, I think, sophomore year or like the end of freshman year of high school.
Okay.
Yeah. And so my parents always knew. They were always pretty cool with it and comfortable. But I know when actually I had a recollection when I was on the train coming here, because I was like, okay, I'm going to be talking to DeShawn about this journey. And if there's any early moments or possibly a light bulb went off in my teenage years, it's probably when I had the conversation with my father, about me liking boys and things like that. And I remember him saying to me, like, oh, I had this puka shell necklace around my neck. Remember the puka shell necklaces, y'all? Remember when everybody maybe had their little preppy face?
I still got mine.
You
do? Still wear it faithfully, yes.
I love that thing. And I had a puka shell choker. And I remember one time, my dad said to me, he was like, why you got all this on, He was like, it's one thing, for you to be gay or whatever, but everybody doesn't have to know,
Wow.
And like, you like boys, but at least you're not a girl, you're not a woman.
So your dad was okay with you being gay, but he wasn't okay with you expressing your femininity at the time.
At that time, keyword at that time, because now, fast forwarding to the present, because I'm not really, it dawned on me on the train that I've never really shared that with anybody before.
Wow.
Because my dad is probably one of the most loving fathers on this planet, honestly. Wow. And I can openly say that.
Wow. That
he loves me for who I was then and now.
Wow, that's a blessing.
Yeah.
That's a major blessing, especially from a dad.
Yeah,
that's
and
a blessing.
In our community, as a black child.
Yeah.
So my father is my saving grace, but children don't come with manuals. They don't come with manuals. Okay, me being a preschool teacher, they might try to create one for you, but they don't come with manuals. And I think he was just expressing his self for what he felt like would be protecting me, But in that moment in time, even me maybe being, I think at the time I had to be like at least maybe 12, 13-ish, around there. I was like, okay, so then that's not possible for me. It's not safe for me to transition.
So, okay, so you knew at like 12,
Oh,
13 that you were a woman.
Oh, the girl knew. She
Wow.
knew. She definitely knew. And
you didn't have there was no like back and forth like am I not? It was just very clear to you like I'm a woman.
Yeah, it was so much so that supposedly in between like the ages of like 5 and 6 or something like that, my mother told me the story that I told my brother that one day I was going to get married to a man, and I was only like 5, 6 years old. And he was like, "What, Mom? Like, you know, she's saying that she's going to get married to a man, you know?" Like, right. So I always knew. It's just fear was ultimately like what kept me from transitioning early on. But when I think about it and when I look back on it, I said, you know what? Everything happens in divine timing, and I'm in such a good place now, and so much more of a comfortable place, and I'm still growing. My handle on Instagram is Sayje and Bloom. I feel like I'm on this journey of forever blooming, you know, and it's only up and outward from here. So yeah, if we bring it closer to the present, it wasn't, you know, actually this October it'll be 2 years.
Congratulations. And happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. 2 years of hormone replacement therapy. So I was gonna say theory. What theory? Hormone replacement therapy. It's a little bit of a tongue twister sometimes.
Right.
And I feel amazing. All the changes that have occurred and everything. I mean, even from the time that you saw me. I mean, you can let me know, like, you know, if you see and feel a difference.
Oh, 100%. Like, 100%. Like, so I'm gonna break this down in like tiers actually. So the you I knew from Berkeley, and then the you that I've seen, and the you.
Who's that girl? Who was that girl?
But and then the you that I have seen in like, you know, sparkling moments in between then and then you now is like night and day. You feel so much more grounded and like as a person, and like your energy is just so much more like it's just honestly like when I saw you at our friend's party, I was like, of course, I was like, my mind was just like, yeah, like duh, like if you know what I mean, like it was just like you know, not to be cliche, but it was like correct, you know what I mean, like you know what I'm saying, like it just felt like right, like okay, like this makes so much more sense, and like the ease that you have now just feels so much more like, oh yeah, like we're in the pocket, you know. So yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I definitely feel all of that, you know. And it's so funny because, again, going back to, if I have to think back to Berkeley and certain friends that we both share, something that they will always tell me is that they admired my confidence and how they're like, you know, like, it doesn't matter what room you walk into, you're always you, you're always yourself. And it wasn't that I necessarily felt like I wasn't being myself, but I was definitely living in the shadow of myself.
Wow.
Like, half of me.
That's so crazy to think too, because I can attest to that, like, you know, and we'll get to, you know, my journey in a minute, but
because I want to know.
Yeah, but just to touch briefly though, like to watch you be so confident in how you present yourself, even when I knew you, was something that like I was terrified of doing. You know what I mean? And so to know that like you weren't confident, you weren't like feeling that way about yourself, like blows my mind, because I thought you were very confident and very like straightforward about who you were, you know what I mean? So it's interesting to hear that. How can you touch a little bit more on like the confidence and like what that journey was like for you?
I think music although it is something that saved and shaped my life, was something that was a little bit of a cover up, because it was always like, oh, I'm artsy. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm artsy, I'm artistic. So of course she's feminine, you know, she's free flowing and things like that. But even before I presented more feminine, I would always at the time get misgendered as she. I can remember in high school, I had a friend whose mom one day, and I've only met this woman like one time.
Okay.
And I stepped at her door to wait for this friend to get something, a book or something in the house, and then we went back out. And she told me, she was like, you know, my mom asked me who was the pretty brown girl that was in the hallway. And at the time I was like, what? Like, you know, I'm gagging, but like at the same time I'm like,
right.
I mean,
right.
yeah,
Right.
like, you know, and I guess to a degree, being this artsy person was a little bit of that cover up, because it allowed me to express myself freely without being so hard on myself. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, when we look at artists in the music industry, there's plenty, well, depends on what arena, but you know, it's not uncommon for a cisgendered male person to have or be in touch with their feminine side, you know, in order to connect with the audience or convey a certain emotion or what have you. So
you said you think it's not uncommon?
I mean, I know what you mean. Like there's definitely like a lot of closeted people in the industry or what have you, but just for me, I should clarify that for me, it felt like a safe place.
Got you.
In the journey.
Got you.
Yeah.
It
felt like a safe place in the journey. Not that like, we have like all these like, you know, openly gay and, you know, non-binary or, you know, male binary. Like, of course not. That's not exactly what I meant. But for me, that's what it felt. It felt like a safe place.
Got you. Oh, can you imagine if we had those artists growing up? Anyway,
I know we have them now.
We do.
I mean, we'll talk about them at some point in time in history. But so that's really what it was, you know. And I can't really. I don't know. I don't really know if I have anything more to say about it. But that's just where I was at that time.
Do you feel, are there any challenges now that like you're 2 years into your, you know, hormone therapy, hormone replacement therapy, right? Did I say it right? Okay.
You said it right. You see?
Yes.
It
is. Okay. So now that you're 2 years in, are there any challenges that you find, or like moments of like, you know, like where are you now basically, and like what does this present for you now? 2 years in.
Where am I now? Now I'm in a much more aligned place within myself, you know, and I feel more authentic to the confidence that, you know, that I'm walking with in all areas of my life, you know, because I pretty much transitioned in the workplace as well, and also through COVID, like, you know what I'm saying, in a way, at least socially. The social part of my transition has been through the past 3 to 4 years, I would say.
Right.
And before this, Sayje was simply my stage name. And when it came time to, like, you know, really sit and think about who she was, I was like, I am Sayje. Like, that's who I am. So why wouldn't that be, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What people call me. And people like friends of ours, like they've always naturally called me Sayje.
Mm-hmm.
So it just stuck. It just felt right.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I love the way you spell it. It took me a minute. Like sometimes I be in La La Land and I get and I like will read things and my mind just sees them a different way. And it took me a minute to be like, oh wait, it's Sayje. Like I just, you know.
It's okay. It's I intentionally chose to spell it that way just so that it differentiates from the herb and the name or the esoteric sage person, but same meaning, same representation, same vibration. Yeah, now I mean, we'll get into it at some later point in time, but like the dating world is definitely, I mean, it's a lot of it is the same for me, but I think walking through the world as a woman is what, you know, is the difference that I'm experiencing with men.
Oh yeah, we definitely gonna have to talk about that. Yeah, we definitely gonna have to get there. Well, real quick, just one more question that I have for you, and then I know we gotta like take a break, but just really quick, and then we'll take a break. But you mentioned that you transitioned while in the workplace.
Yeah.
What was that experience like too? Because I don't know if you're comfortable talking about what you do, but with the kind of job that you do have, what was that like for you?
It was interesting because it's probably not the most general practice to have so many people in the workplace, like, who have access to your social media, you know what I'm saying? Like your Instagram, your Facebook, and this and that. But the place that I work at now, I knew a number of these people before I was actually employed there. Okay. And so they knew me as Sayje the artist.
Got it.
Right. And they supported me in that way. It took it did take a little bit of time with pronouns and things like that, and then like changing my name, you know. For certain people, you know, it was an easy switch. For some people, it was like, duh, you know, because I work with a wide age range of people. So depending on, you know, their knowledge or their experience or how they connect with me. But overall, I will say that I was blessed to have a really great transition in the workplace. Yeah, I'm really blessed to say that, honestly, and I'm so grateful for my wonderful, beautiful coworkers. If they ever get to tune in and see this, I appreciate them. It's like a little family.
Yes, I love that. I love that.
I will say, just very quickly before I go out on the break, because I'm hoping that this is something that continues to happen in other industries and workplaces. There's been a number of trainings recently that have popped up at my job about pronouns, gender identity, trans people, queer people, the definitions of all of those things. And it's a mandatory training trial. You gotta take that.
Are you serious?
Yes. So it's like when we talk about, on Unbinding the Binary, about alignment and vibrations and all of these things, for me in my journey, it literally felt like, this was supposed to happen for you at this time, because it almost felt like right after I came out at work, it was like these things started to pop up.
Wow, I love that. I didn't know that was happening. Like,
I
haven't been a part of a more structured work, you know, place in that regard. So I didn't know that was happening like that. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and we could get into some other like more specific things that occurred, because that would be a great thing to talk about at some point in time. Yeah. But again, like for myself, it was a smooth.
Well, blessed be to you.
Thank you.
And your continued journey, to blooming as you are. It is beautiful to see. I love it. DeShawn. You know, congratulations on this whole like journey to self-actualization. Like that's always beautiful, you know. So congratulations, and onward and upward. You know what I'm saying? Well, let's take a break.
Yeah, let's take a little break.
Let's take a little break.
Let's take a little break.
All right, we'll be right back.
Hello world, this is Freddie Atlas, and my new single, Skies of New York, is now out on all platforms.
And we're back. We are back. So now I want to get into a little bit about you and your journey. And we could start with, back in 2007 when I met you, I remember I have a really fond memory of you being in a band.
Yes.
With one of our cool friends.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about where you were, at the time in your journey, at Berkeley, in Boston.
So, okay. I had just, when I got to Berkeley, actually, I had just come from a very amazing moment in my life that was also somewhat traumatic.
Okay.
To make a long story short, I was on a national television show that had aired, and it was an amazing thing. I was flown to LA, was on the red carpet. It was a whole thing. And one of the things that made that such a difficult thing, though, is because it was my femininity that embarrassed me unintentionally. Now, when the whole moment was happening, I thought I was being the most masculine thing in the world. In my mind, I'm like, hold it together. You know what I'm saying? Like, trying my best to be like as tough as possible. And then when I thought I was being as tough as possible. Then I was embarrassed. And it also was unintentional, but I had to go through some therapy about that. And then when I saw the footage back, once the episode aired, I was like terrified. I was like, just like, I couldn't believe what I was watching. I looked like such a queen, which now I embrace. But back then, that was not it for me at all. And I remember going home and watching on YouTube. The clip was posted on YouTube at the time. And I remember all the clips, all the comments were like, and the funny thing is the comments were actually derogatory to the person who embarrassed me, not to me, but people were picking up on the fact that I was gay. And I just couldn't take it because I wasn't comfortable with myself, even though I was in a whole relationship, child, like living together with my partner at the time.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Whole
oh my gosh.
relationship.
Wow.
Yeah. Because, okay, so when we met at Berkeley, mind you, I was 24 at the time. I was 24 when I went to Berkeley.
In 2007? I was a baby.
Yeah, I was 24, so I had already been like living like my life.
Oh, you was grown.
Yeah, I was coming back to school, but that's a whole other journey, a whole other story for another day. But so like, even though I was in this relationship and everything, I still was not comfortable with my sexuality, like let alone like gender and all that hadn't even really come into play, at least not in my like super conscious. It was always there, but it wasn't in my conscious. And so once again, now I'm at Berkeley and I'm trying to be as, masculine as possible. And it's funny because you touched on like the artist thing and like how, this will get swept under the rug if I'm an artist. I thought that my expression as far as like the way I dressed or like some things that people would consider to be artsy was art. I didn't think of it like, oh, my femininity is allowing me to be an artist. I would just pass myself off as an artist in general, but not thinking I was still hiding my femininity. So that was what I was going through at Berkeley, trying to, be manly, and that was not coming across at all whatsoever. Like, even thinking back, I'm like, child, you was prancing around with locks, the tips dyed purple,
right?
The whole nine.
I mean, and it's so funny because from my perspective, I always thought that you were comfortable with all of that. It's just that It was nobody's business, child. It's nobody's business.
I was not. Like, the people close to me knew that I was gay, you know what I mean? But coming off of that experience, me trying my hardest to still present as masculine as I possibly can. And I remember crying to my friend at the time and being like, I tried so hard, and yet I still look like... excuse the term, but this is where I was at that time in my life. I was like, I remember crying like, I tried so hard and I still look like a flaming faggot. And like, yeah, and like to me, I was like, everybody who ever picked on me, like they won. This was supposed to be my moment to get back, like to say like, see, I made it in spite of, and now all of them are like laughing at me. The whole world's like, I went through it, child. Like I went through it so bad. It was not up until it was not up until maybe like 6 years ago that I could actually watch that footage without crying. And it took somebody sitting me down, making me go through layer by layer until I was able to like accept that experience. And a lot of that had to do with my femininity and my expression, because I'm telling you, if I was the person I am now and I had that experience, that it would have been just a totally different thing for me.
The show.
Yeah, the show, the whole experience. Because honestly, from the moment I was embarrassed unintentionally, but I was embarrassed, I shut down and I went into autopilot. Like all of my responses from that moment on were autopilot. The red carpet was autopilot. Like everything was autopilot. And it kind of just sent me into like a really dark spiral because I started to hide myself. I could have used that opportunity a lot. You know, YouTube had just been popping, but I can't show myself. Like I was like embarrassed and I hid, and tried to use music as, you know, what's the word? Not a crutch, but I hid behind my music, if you will. But even in the music I was writing, I was referring to, you know, her and woman and like, you know, as if I'm talking to these girls. Lo and behold, I'm writing songs about my first love, who is a whole, you know, man. You know what I mean? Like whole man, and pronouns, he, him too. So, you know, that was that for that time. But moving on from there, it's been like a journey of just acceptance, and it's happened in layers. Like it went from like me accepting my sexuality. Like I grew up in a very religious household, like super religious household.
I was gonna ask about that.
Yeah, like to the point, like there is a whole point in my life. So the whole birth of hip hop I missed because I was not allowed to listen to hip hop music. If it wasn't gospel, I was not allowed to listen to it. So my music journey didn't even, like, it was like it cut off at In Vogue, like the first album, and it picked up at Brandy. Like, and no, seriously. So from like 90, what is that? Like 92, 93 to like 96. I missed the whole birth of hip hop. Like, and it took me a long time to like even connect with hip hop, and all of that. But saying all that to say is that it's just been a journey. So like first it was accepting my sexuality because I was afraid of it, and then once I accepted that, then it became accepting my femininity, and that didn't happen until after my last album, actually. Like I put out my last independent album in 2016, and even then I was still trying to be this guy. Like my stage name at the time was Dodge, and I had tried to build Dodge up to be this eccentric guy, but still passing straight. I was writing all of my music without gender, so that, like, granted, still knowing like I'm gay. If you ask me, I'm gay, but I still need to present masculine. You know what I mean? So it was like I had got to that place where I'm like, I'm gay, I'm a gay artist, that's what it is, but I still need to present masculine, because if I don't, I'm never gonna make it.
Right.
And that went on for a while. And then after the last album, I was just tired. I wasn't happy. I was not feeling like myself. I didn't even know how to be myself. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even know I wasn't comfortable in, like, moving my body, how to walk, how to, like, dance. You know, I'm very expressive. And I didn't know how to do any of that because I didn't know how to just accept my femininity. Then I started to produce these dance events in New York, and they were all about conscious dance and embodiment, and that taught me a lot about just like being in my body.
Okay.
We would go to these dances, they were happening, and like one of them was like no shoes on the dance floor, no drinking, no drugs or anything like that. So like completely sober. And I remember the first time I went too. That was like a big moment, because I went and I had on these like big bellowing pants and like, doing my thing, and like I'm sober and I'm like, I don't know how to move up in here, but okay, I just closed my eyes and I started dancing, and I allowed myself to just move and just be.
The body talk.
Oh my God. And
once talk.
Yes, and it was like I didn't care like about how quote unquote feminine it looked or girly it looked. Like I didn't care about what my hips were doing, or like, if I felt the beat, or like if a little voguing came out I just didn't care, you know what I mean? And that's the thing too, because I had a very up and down hot and cold relationship with the ballroom culture. And that's a topic for another day, but that definitely was
or a few days.
Yeah.
Or a few days.
Yeah. So and that was like, way back. But anyway, being at this dance, it just kind of like put me in my body, and then that set me on like a journey. And in that and through that community is when I was introduced to the term non-binary. And the first time I heard non-binary, it was like a light bulb just went like, and for those who don't know, non-binary is a person who identifies as not male nor female, and it's just in between. That's like the
for
easiest,
the lack of a better term.
lack of a better term.
Or a little bit of both.
Yeah, or a little bit of both. Yeah. Just in the gender fluid spectrum, and the first time I heard that was explained to me, I remember looking like, I was like, the person who told me, I was like, wait, that's a thing? You know what I mean? And they, because they're non-binary too, they were like, yeah. And I was like, wait, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's like a real thing, It's
a real thing.
Yeah, and so I did research, and that's when I discovered like pronouns. And I'm like, now mind you, I'm 36 at this point. 36. I'm 36 at this point. Just discovering this and being like, oh my God, like, where has this been my whole life? Because I grew up, like, people used to say to me when I was younger, like, I don't see you as a boy or a girl. I just see you as DeShawn. People used to say this to me all the time in different variations of that. I used to say, used to tell people I was a mermaid. I used to tell people I was an alien. Like anything I could possibly say that would make me not be gendered. You know what I mean? Not even really understanding what I was saying, but knowing that like I don't feel like I'm either. I just feel like I'm not human. Like I don't belong here. Like, y'all, what are y'all on? You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't get it. So to have somebody explain that to me, it like blew my mind. And from there I went, my pronouns were he, they for a long time. And again, holding on to he, because I was still embracing like myself, but still knowing like I need to make things comfortable for everybody else. Like, it's just so much easier if I just keep he, because then it like I'm comfortable, and like my family will be comfortable, and my grandparents especially, which I still have not like came out to my grandparents as they, them. Not ready yet.
And that's okay, and it takes time,
Yeah, for sure.
It definitely does.
For sure. I'll get there. I just, I love them, and their disappointment. Well, I don't want to say disappointment, because their disapproval does mean a lot to me. And I know that this is something that they will not understand, and I just want to be prepared to be able to handle that. If that's the case, I could be totally wrong. I could be, But anyway, I held on to he, they for a long time, up until 2 months ago, actually, when I finally decided that like he had to go. Because I just got tired.
He gotta go.
Yeah.
He gotta go.
He gotta go. Like,
he gotta leave.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yes. I have two amazing partners that really love and embrace me, and they like I've I've told people this, that they've loved me into healing without them knowing it.
Wow.
Because I hadn't really been around anyone who just allowed me to be and loved me in spite of. I always felt like I had to have some sort of filter, and they kind of like erased my filters. You know what I mean? Like they were just like, they just didn't care. Literally, me rolling around the floor in their house, like straight, like it just didn't matter. Like they just loved me for who I was, and it made me reevaluate like who was around me and like what was happening, you know, in my life. And I was just like, you know what? If it's not like this, then I don't want it. And I just want to be me. And so I wrote my sisters, and I was like, hey y'all, I'm just letting y'all know, like, I'm dropping my he pronouns. I'm going by they, them. I love y'all, you know. My sisters was like, we love you. It's okay. It's fine. Like, you know, whatever. I'm very close with my sisters. And then it was another like couple weeks, and then I wrote all of my really close friends, and was like, hey, just letting y'all know, like, this is where it's at. I told everybody at my job, like, my formal email, like, they, them. I just told my aunt like a week and a half ago that I'm one of my aunts that I'm the closer to, my aunt and my cousin, and that's where we are now. So like they, them are my pronouns, my preferred pronouns, and the only pronouns.
They are your pronouns.
Yes, they are. Yes,
they are your pronouns.
Yeah.
I'm a little leery of the word preferred, because I think that it leaves room for people to think that it's just an option. You know what I'm saying? No,
thank you for that.
They, them are your pronouns. Those are your pronouns.
Thank you for that.
No, it's not a preference.
Yeah,
okay?
Yeah, and thank you for that. No, thank you. Like that, you just like that just like really resonated with me to be a little bit more clear about that. And I mean, and to be honest, like, I still struggle sometimes even with correcting people, like especially in jobs and places, and like I'm still learning how to like make it clear, because I don't, you know, because the way I present, people just assume, you know, whatever they want, no matter how I dress. Especially now, everybody dresses, you know, we live in New York, people gonna wear whatever they want to. You know
Exactly.
what I mean? You know, right, exactly. So, and I know, you know, the not being non-binary is such a newer expression. It's always been there, and honestly, I tell you this too, like, I wish for the life of me, and I can't do nothing about it now, but I do wish that this understanding had been presented when I was a child. I think this would have helped so much with so many things. Like, when I accepted my gender, it really erased so much of my anxiety about myself, and it made me actually sit back and realize how much of my life I have spent protecting myself. So I'm not paying attention in schools, or you know, just running through the world and using performance and art as the only way to speak.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I did not, like, I couldn't just be, you know, what me just being, if this would have been presented, how this would have changed the dynamic between me and my family, you know, like. And as the podcast go on, I will talk more about my family, and I just want to say that, like, I love my family. We are healed, but there are parts of my story that are very true, that are about my family, that might not feel so good. You know what I mean? And
I'm so glad that you put that out there too, because that's something that, you know, like, I mean, not to bring it back to me, but, you know, I had just mentioned my dad, and that's why I had to throw in there that even though that was a moment in my childhood that I can remember was kind of triggering for me, you know, there's definitely a lot of healing that has occurred between him and I specifically, you know. So that's great that, you know, we're going to be talking about our family dynamics and things like that, because, child, especially with, you know, a change of pronouns, it's not easy, because, you know, people know you for so long as, you know, one thing, and they perceive you to be one thing. And not to cut you off, but something that I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind, was,
please,
you know, how has the dropping of the he pronoun been for you, and how are people with calling you, you know, they, them, because linguistically, sometimes it can be a challenge for some people, depending on the way that they speak and address people, you know. So how's that been?
It's been interesting. I would say that I feel so much more myself. I I always joke about like who are you in the shower versus who you are in real life. And you know what I mean? Like, cause in the shower, child, like like everybody's Beyonce, Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, all of them in the shower. You know what I mean? Like, you're just like, yes, I'm living my best life. And so I actually feel like, you know, jokingly, that I am me in the shower now, like as myself. You know what I mean? Like it just changed like my whole like. I feel like I can walk better because I used to think about how I walk all the time. I'm not thinking about like how I'm talking or how I'm expressing myself. I'm just being. So that definitely has been a major like release for me to accept my pronouns as they them. Mm-hmm. And for religious reasons too, I struggled with that for a minute because growing up in the way that I did, the idea of addressing myself as they them made me think of like, oh, you have demons, like you're like the guy in the Bible who had the demons. And like, you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. So I had to really like sit with myself and be like, no, sweetheart, that's not it at all.
What it is. It's not more than one person.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
It's you and
exactly
your expression and the way that you move through the world. It's your identity.
Exactly.
Isn't it so refreshing? Because again, it's like when it comes to the spectrum of gender and gender identity, it's like a lot of sometimes cis people or people outside of, you know, trans or non-binary experience will feel like, oh, all of this is so new and where did this come from? And it's like, when you think about it, like gender studies, like the study of gender in a social aspect and all that, it is still relatively new. Mm-hmm. So when people are hearing these terms, it is new to the ear, but the energy, the actual identity in itself has been here since the dawn of time.
Oh yeah.
It has. Yeah. It's just that now we have the language to attach to these identities and these bodies. And I think that it's a beautiful thing, and it's helping everything and everyone fall into their rightful place in this place and time, incarnate.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like people, you know, that's still, you know, touch and go. People will still address me as he. Like those who know, in my everyday, they'll say he, but then they'll always correct themselves. Like my roommate, such a sweetheart. His pronouns are he, him. And he, like, even when he's talking to me and he'll say something, he'll be like, and I told him that they, and I just kind of like chuckle because I think it's cute, you know what I mean? Because I'm never angry at anybody for the mistake. You know, I know we're all learning, and the people that I have corrected in those moments, I always say like, don't trip, like, you know, we're all learning together, you know what I mean? Sometimes even I might accidentally misgender myself.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, when someone
that's
call,
a thing in itself.
Yeah, someone will call and they're like, is this DeShawn? I go, yes, this is he. And I'm like, oh. I always go, oh, like, why did I just do that? You know what I mean? So
because it's language.
It is language. It is. It really is. It's just, you know, so, but yeah, I mean, I'm just so happy to like finally be me. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I feel like I'm me, like me, and I don't. There's so much of that's making me emotional because there's so much of my life, and there's so many people in my life with all the dreams that I've had who've never met me. You know what I mean? Like they've met a version of me the version of me that I allowed them to meet, but they've never met me. And the last like year and a half, like people are meeting me. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm meeting me. You know what I'm saying? Like it's been like such a like every day it's like a new discovery, and it's just been so cool to not have anxiety and to just breathe. You know? So yeah, that's that.
And I just want to let you know that I'm so happy for you that you've arrived to this point in the journey, you know, of self-acceptance and love. And I can remember back to our friend's party, and when you walked into the room, I was like, DeShawn. Like, I felt like, obviously I hadn't seen you in such a long time, but there was definitely a shift that I noticed as well.
Yeah.
There was a glow and just like a presence in the room that even I felt added to my own comfortability. Because I do think that when you are radiating and vibrating in authenticity, I think other people in the room can feel it. They can, and I definitely did, and I do now.
Oh, thank you. Likewise.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations
Thank you.
and continued blessings to you for your highest good always.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Aww.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you,
Of
child.
course.
Well, let's take a break.
Let's take a little break. Ooh, child. The unpacking.
The Oracle Shop is a metaphysical boutique located in the heart of Bushwick, Brooklyn. 164 Wilson, Brooklyn, New York, 11237. The Oracle Shop. And we're back.
Yes, here we are again. We just wanted to thank you so much for tuning in. We will be coming to you guys bi-weekly.
Every other Tuesday.
Every other Tuesday with more in-depth topics, again, about music, art, dating, gender roles, and identity. And we really want this to be a sacred space for not only queer, trans, and non-binary people of color, but for cisgender people as well to come tune in and listen, because any questions that you may have had before, we are aiming to hopefully answer some of them, as well as just open up a space for conversation to be had.
So make sure you like, subscribe, hit the little follow on your Spotify so you can get the little notifications, and stay tuned every other Tuesday to Unbinding the Binary. I guess that's it. Oh, thank you. We did it.
Oh.
All right. We will see you next time. Bye, y'all. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Unbinding.the.binary. Email us at Unbinding.the.binary.podcast@gmail.com.